Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. It's War Rabbit, and today we are going to show my final thoughts of the Doom, the Dark Ages playthrough. It's just going to be the last, I think 30 minutes of my final stream where I just give my thoughts and opinions on the whole thing. It's kind of informal review, but it is what it is. Thank you so much. Oh, yeah, this game is pretty interesting. Just right off the bat, I do not think this game was as good as Doom Eternal. That might just be me. I might have to go back to play Doom Eternal again. Might do it on stream, who knows. To see if it really is, because it might just be a back-to-back type of thing where like I really need to test it out. But yeah, this game, it had its problems. Performance-wise, it's awkward. I had to finagle a lot of things, and there was a lot of freezing when I just did default settings where it's like, oh yeah, I just clicked ultra and expected the game to run well because, you know, obviously I don't have the best PC, you know, but I did update my graphics card, so I assumed I could have done like medium graphics without having the game freeze every 10 seconds, but that wasn't the case. But I looked up a troubleshoot method, and it seems certain settings when changed, I was able to get higher graphical fidelity and hopefully higher stream fidelity while increasing my stuff like that. But so let's just go through the gameplay. You know, it's still pretty fun. It's not, I think it's a space between Doom 2016, because Doom 2016 is slower than this game, and Doom Eternal is much faster than this game. And I guess they did get that like sweet spot they wanted from like the marketing, because I did see some marketing where it's like, oh, you're supposed to stand and fight. You don't really stand and fight, because if you stand still you die. But the probably my biggest complaint about the gameplay is going to be probably the parry and the weird like slowdown of time every time you did like a parry or an action or anything like that. That kind of felt bad. You know, because like you do it and then like the attack coming in would be slower, and then it just speed up randomly, and then like the parry window would be awkward, and that's a major problem. I think maybe there's probably like a setting, or maybe there's just the way they designed it. The early parts of this game was kind of a slog, like a really big slog, where you're just sitting there, like the Atlan fights. they're not good. Like whenever you play as the big giant robot, like it's a spectacle, which is cool, but it's literally just 3 buttons, and then you just do some like big attack, insta kill the mob, and move on to the next one. Like, yeah, there was like when they started adding a lot of them, it kind of got a little interesting, because then you got to like balance that, so there's some skill there at the very end. But that happened like the very final fights, and you still like one-shot the enemies anyway. So, and this is on Nightmare, so it's like it's kind of sad in that regard. Probably my least favorite part of this game was the dragon flying. I just I don't understand why they chose that mechanic, because it's kind of the same thing with like the swimming mechanic. I understood it later, but I understood why they added the swimming mechanic, because they had the little Cthulhu thing where you had to go in like the water and swim, and you had like that kind of that underwater section where you have to have that like thalassophobia, where you have this giant monster in the deep and you're kind of swimming. It's like, oh, I don't want to do this type of stuff. But you know, I think they wasted some development time on that. They probably could have done more of the good parts of the game. And the dragon itself just was not in the level I liked it. It felt like a PS2 game flying around. Like the flying, it felt nice, but the actual combat was just like, I feel like Jak and Daxter had better flying mechanics than that. You know, and like Jak 3, it felt like I was playing Jak 3, which wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but Jak 3 is notorious for how bad vehicle controls are. So there was that. I do think that graphically it looked nice, like the settings, like the set pieces started getting better. At the beginning, it kind of felt like, what was I doing? I just kind of showed up, killed things, and that was it. But you know, that's kind of Doom in general. It's like, why am I here? Story-wise, I really wasn't understanding what was going on. I feel like I had something. There was something in Doom Eternal that I do not remember playing. It might have been the DLC because I didn't play that as much as the base game. And it's been a few years since I played both, so unfortunately I don't remember everything, so there's probably that. When looking at it gameplay wise, it's just Doom. So it's if you like Doom, you're gonna like this game. If you're kind of like a casual Doom enjoyer, you're still probably gonna like the game. And the flow state of just a boomer shooter, I think they they barely nailed it in my opinion, because they try to break it up into the robot sections, the flying sections, and then you go into the actual, you know, boomer shooter section, which I enjoy a lot more than the other sections. And I'm glad that they got it, but it just felt like it was going slow, especially when you have all the weapons, or more specifically when you have the Ravager. The game plays a lot better, because upgrading all the weapons, I don't really feel any difference. Like there's like one weapon I felt really good playing with, and it was the Ravager and the super shotgun and stuff like that, which kind of tends to be that way. And Doom Eternal, you were weapon swapping a lot because certain enemies just would be faster to kill this way, faster to go that way. In this game, it's just parry them until they die, which kind of felt bad, to be honest, because you'd just be standing there. Like if you were watching when you started fighting like the cyber demons, they just constantly spam the parry attack, and if, as long as you parried it, like everything around you basically couldn't damage you, and they just keep getting stunned. And then you'd wait, and then you melee them, get your full health back, execute them, and instead of like actually being able to run around and do things, you're just basically stuck there fighting, which wasn't really bad, but it wasn't interesting in the same way that I would have liked, to be honest. Yeah, probably the one hiccup I had, like gameplay wise, difficult. I'm playing on Nightmare, so it's like it's not necessarily the hardest difficulty, because the hardest difficulty is like after Nightmare it stops becoming like difficulty and like challenge runs where like, oh yeah, you can't die, only heal this way, stuff like that. So this is like the hardest the damage is going to get until they start just one-shotting you every single time you round a corner, and have very specific pathing, gather all the things. And difficulty wise, I didn't really feel any of the difficulty. You know, I died quite a bit, obviously, because I wasn't really paying attention half the time. And towards the end of the game, when the fight started getting a little longer and there was more stuff happening, it felt more difficult. And then it also, because of the difficulty, it felt like I was actually, you know, the Doomslayer running around slaughtering everyone of hell, which is pretty nice. So the end of the game's a lot better than the start, in my opinion, realistically. And the start was kind of rough. It really was. And you move in towards the enemy types. The enemy types are fun. Most of them just it's kind of sad, because most of the enemies are just a different type of parry. It wasn't really like they do different things, obviously. Like I like the shield walls with like the big guys behind them and stuff like that, but it really just felt like, hey, here's an enemy with armor, you have to parry until you can break its armor and then blow its brains out, which really wasn't that big of a deal. But like every single enemy in the late game is basically that. Like, yeah, anything that didn't have armor died pretty much instantly, and the stuff that did have armor basically made it so I could only use like 3 or 4 weapons, you know, like specific weapons, because they're the only things that can crack the armor quickly, which kind of sucked. Which, you know, like, it is what it is. The BFC was pretty cool. I rarely used it, obviously, because, you know, they had limited ammo, and the ammo is a pickup on the map. But the only good thing is that unlike previous Doom titles, when you open the map, it just shows you where everything is, and you don't have to go find the secrets. You just have to go there and then figure out how to get to the secret, which is nice. Because I'm pretty sure in Doom Eternal and Doom 2016, none of the secrets showed up on the map, if they even had a map. I think both those games had maps, but I don't remember the secrets just, you know, showing up at the start no matter what, so you can go through the map and do that. So it makes 100%ing it pretty interesting, because it makes it quick. Because, like, to be honest, like, having all the stuff, having all the secrets on the map doesn't really give away the secret, so to speak. It just makes it so you know where they're at, and you can still experience doing the puzzle and stuff instead. Because, like, most people, like, if you're gonna sit there to get all the collectibles and stuff like that, if you're gonna do the 100%, you're just gonna open up a YouTube video where everyone's already found it, and then just do that really quick to get the achievement points, unfortunately, because you're not there's, I feel like the average gamer is just like, yeah, man, I don't care about all the secrets, finding them on my own at this point. Like, it's not that, I don't think Doom's the type of game people are really trying to figure out every single thing about, unfortunately. But yeah, the map was good. I rarely used it until the end, because that's when I started remembering I had a map, to be honest. So that was pretty interesting. Let's keep thinking. What else is there? So the music. I don't know what I was doing wrong. I don't know if the music is just worse than the previous titles or what. Because like one stream the music was pretty good and it was loud, so I had to keep adjusting my settings. And that adjustment was probably what makes the music go so quiet, but some of it is good. Like some of the really heavy, you know, the guitars, you know, like the standard Doom music we've had for the last two titles that really gets you going, to get you to start pumping you so you can go in and slaughter everything. That stuff's just kind of missing in this title, at least for good portions of the game. And then when you get that music, it feels good. It's not the same as the previous titles, which suck. Because obviously I'm going to compare this game to Doom Eternal, and it sucks because I think this game was good. I think it's a solid 7, to be honest. Like it's a solid 7 out of 10. The problem is ID Software, Bethesda, Microsoft didn't need a 7 out of 10. They needed a 10 out of 10. This game costs $80, right? And a game costing $80 that's, you know, familiar but has some changes, and those changes are kind of like, you probably could have kept Doom Eternal and just copied and pasted it and moved it forward, and I feel like you'd have a better game. Story wise, again, like the whole Sentinel, the god thing, I wasn't really paying attention to that. And it kind of felt, if you like, yeah, there's the dossiers that you could probably read. I didn't read those, you know. So maybe if it was required reading to understand what was going on, which is not a good thing. If I need to read the little transcriptions to know what's going on in a first-person, you know, boomer shooter, that kind of, in my opinion, is a issue, because I'm not trying to stop me playing the game to read some things. Like the tutorials I read, obviously, because you don't want to mess up, because especially when you get the Doom and you get in the higher difficulties, if you don't know what you're doing, you're gonna die extremely quickly. But yeah, if there's lore in the dossiers that explain a lot of stuff, then yeah, okay. But I didn't go out of my way to read that stuff, to be honest. I probably should have, but it just is what it is. Like, it's kind of like the grimoires from the original Destiny 1, where you're like, oh yeah, you collect all these things, and the way you go read them is you go open up the Bungie app to read them. It kind of feels like, oh, I gotta open a menu, and then I go to the dossier part of the menu, and then once I get to there, then I get to see the lore, and I'm like, okay, I'm lazy, I don't want to do that, I'm just gonna keep playing the game. That was probably my problem, to be honest. Same thing with probably the performance issues that I was having was most likely my problem. I know it had, like, the Nouveau is in this game, if I remember correctly, and Denuvo is pretty bad to have, which sucks, because, you know, they're gonna have it in the games, because I'm pretty sure it's an anti-piracy thing, and it's gonna be in every game that it can be in that's safe. I think they locked in mandatory ray tracing, if I remember correctly, as well, so that really messed with the performance stuff, and I don't know why they did that. I feel like that kind of stuff is just poor decision making, because not everyone's gonna have this super powerful rig. Like, I don't have a super powerful rig. I'm not, and you know, I got a lot of issues from that, and I managed to get through it, unfortunately. But some people don't want to get through it, you know. Some people were just like, no, I froze 4 times in a row in the span of 10 minutes. I'm uninstalling now. And that's a major problem for these types of games, to be honest. Is you get this huge trip, like I spent $80 and the game barely runs because I have an awkward setting, and then when I was adjusting the settings, I'd crash. I'd randomly, not really crash, I'd freeze. The game would freeze when I'm adjusting the graphical settings, and I'm like, so I have to fight to get that to start working as well, which is kind of ridiculous. And I hopefully they fix that, or maybe it's just on my, again, it could have been completely on me, which is, you know, most likely what happened, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt there. Yeah, going back to the rating, like a 7 out of 10, you know, if Doom Eternal's like an 8 and Doom 2016's an 8, I think both those games are 8s. I give Doom 2016 a pass for being a little slower because it's the first like new Doom game that we got, so that kind of gets the pass. Doom Eternal improved on the thing, but this game kind of feels like a regression from Eternal, because if you go back to play Eternal, there's a lot of movement going around, and it's I think that's more fun. That's the more quintessential movement, moving quickly, keeping the enemies down and stuff like that, managing that, going through the arena multiple times is that feels more boomer shooter. This game is more like, okay, you can kind of, it was getting to the point in certain fights, I'm like, dude, moving around is just killing me. I should just camp in this spot and then move this and keep shooting. And that's kind of not fun. And you keep doing that, and you can kind of muscle your way through it. And after a month, you can basically just brute force your way through. And then obviously the parry mechanic is just really simple. And there's probably ways to make the game harder. And then like if you lower the parry window time, that can kind of do it. Because like, oh, you got to be, you know, frame perfect to get the parry, and that I feel like that would go from making the game difficult and just making it not fun, because this game is so reliant on that mechanic that it's almost unfun, because every single enemy is like, oh, here, have this parryable attack you got to do, and there's basically no dodging them. Like, you can't move out of their way efficiently most of the time because they're just coming at you heat seeking, and there's nothing you can do to dodge, which kind of sucks. So it's weird because the parry mechanic literally is designed to make you stand still, and that kind of defeats the purpose of a boomer shooter. Like, you go look at like Bolt Gun. Bolt Gun, the way they get you to stand still is they basically effectively use a chainsword, and the chainsword exists to get you to get resources and armor and stuff back by chopping up an enemy that's low health. In this game, you do that as well, but they also want to keep you staying still just in general for some reason. And I don't know why they did that, because they have these really nice settings, and I'm just standing here staring at a Cyber Demon, at a Komodo champion, or the Vagary champion, or the six-legged dude. That guy. You're just standing there, and they're not really making me move. Excuse me, I had to sneeze. They're not making me move around, and that kind of felt bad, because it's like these enemies aren't really difficult in that regard. They just kind of, if there's more than enough, and if there's enough enemies that can make me move, well, I have to fight those guys, because those guys are like, oh, don't move. Or if you are moving, like the Komodo champion is probably the most annoying guy to fight, because you parry him and you get him to be stunned or whatever, and then he shoots those fireballs that are heat seeking that do like almost insta kill you, and you're like, oh boy, this is so fair. And then probably the thing that I was really getting at here is you start looking at the end game, and you start like the beginning is kind of slow, the mid game starts to rev up. I really like the Cthulhu aesthetic, where you're doing like the Lovecraftian stuff where you fight Cthulhu. That was pretty neat. Kind of sucked there was no enemy types that were kind of like that. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe there was and I just didn't register them, because all the demons kind of felt the same, or that they're all part of the same faction. And like the first like made the real enemy that was different was like the Creed, the Maker drones, or whatever the hell they were, when you go hunt the fat guy down. And when you like the boss fight's fun, like all the boss fights except for Azrak's boss fights weren't, like the second one was a little more fun than the first one, in my opinion. I think the first one was just sit here, parry all of his attacks. By the time you're done parrying, you can kill him, and then he runs away. So it's like, oh, okay, cool. The second time with the witch, that was much more interesting in that regard, because you have the action, you have the additive of fighting the witch, so that was interesting. And I wouldn't even call the Cthulhu fight a boss fight, where you fight the old one or whatever, the armored old one in the Titan suit, because the Titan parts of the game and the flying parts are just so boring. Like the first time you go in with like the dragon, like, oh cool, I got this cool dragon, and you do like the flying tutorial and stuff like that, and you finish it, and then you see it's like, okay, well now I gotta go do this, and you're just sitting there. You lock onto the thing, it puts you in a thing, and literally you just use a directional key. You pick a direction, and then you press the dodge button, and then you automatically win. And it's like, oh boy, that was so fun, you know. This is an $80 game that I'm playing, and it feels like I'm going back to, you know, Pong. It's just so simple, and I know it's cool to fly on the dragon. Like the flying part is like interesting because it's like, oh cool, I'm flying on a giant cyber dragon, that's fun. But the actual combat in those sections is so mind-boggling boring that I don't know why they kept it in the game. And then you had the probably the only good thing about the flying section is they had the little treasure ships, and those treasure ships, you'd be able to chase them down, and once you finish chasing them down, for the most part, you'd be by the objective, so you'd blow up the treasure ship, so it makes you, instead of just kind of flying in that whatever line it is, and like, okay, I'm trying to get to the objective, it kind of gives you something to do, see parts of the map that you wouldn't normally see if you're going straight to the objective, and it makes it more interesting in that regard, but it's still overall not fun. And then obviously the Atlan fights are literally just like press RT, enemy attacks, literally whenever the enemy is attacking, press LT, immediately insta kill that guy, rinse and repeat ad nauseum until they're all dead. Even the final boss fight, there's literally nothing different, and it's not even like, I'm pretty sure it's all right hooks. I could be wrong, because like I'm literally was just not interested in that section of the game. I'm pretty sure it was all just maybe one or two animations where it just goes right left, and then you do like a stomp, and then you hit palm attack, and then you get the big guns, which like kind of like, oh, I'm charging my laser, and it's just like, okay. So those parts and the swimming, I feel like the swimming probably didn't take too much resources to create, but come on, man, like why is that in this game? It's just the entire game should have just been about you going from point B to point A. Oh cool, I got a skin. You should have gotten to point A to point B, and then you kill enemies in between, and you're doing that by running around through everything. That's much more interesting. The actual combat as the Slayer is fun. It's just it's problematic because of the shield, and if you don't like that, because I don't really like the shield too much, I feel like it was just kind of yeeting me around for no reason. It's just, I like the shield charge. I didn't like the parry stuff. The parry stuff was kind of boring. And then like whenever you try to like, oh yeah, the little red attacks, if you try to block with the shield just explodes and you can't parry, and you immediately die. So it's just one of those things. So you go through that stuff. But yeah, I think this is just either you like it or you hate it. It's not an Assassin's Creed Shadows or a Dragon Age Veilguard type failure, but this is definitely, I don't think this game is gonna make the money ID Software was expecting it to make, you know. I think they were probably expecting this game to probably sell like 5 to 6, maybe even 10 million units. 10 million might be a little much. Probably 5 million units they're probably going to get to. Maybe even 1 million. I do not know where they're going to get all these sales from. I know because I'm playing on Game Pass. You know, I could not imagine buying this game for $80, booting it up, and the game immediately freezes when you open the options menu because it's on ultra setting base and your game can't load. Like, I could not imagine being that guy on Steam that got tricked into buying this game for $80 because you don't have Xbox Game Pass, which is like, if you don't have Xbox Game Pass, I think you're a fool. It's probably the best system, like a subscription service in gaming right now. And I think the whole point of these games on Xbox being $80 now is to incentivize you to buy Game Pass, and this is what, like, Doom Dark Ages is one of the reasons why you should have Game Pass, because this game is not worth $80. This game, I'd be hard pressed to buy this game for $60, and to be honest, like I was playing Clair Obscur, and then when this game dropped, I started playing this, and I wanted to immediately go back to playing Clair Obscur, and it's just night and day in performance and quality of the game, and how much more interesting Clair Obscur was. And Clair Obscur is pretty simple, you know, and this game is probably more technically, like skill wise, more challenging, but it's I really don't think this game's worth $80. I cannot justify this game being $80. But yeah, I think that's all I really got to say on this game. I probably rambled incoherently for probably 20-30 minutes. But yeah, I don't think this game is better than Doom Eternal, and I think it's probably better than Doom 2016. So if I said Doom 2016 was an 8, I think Doom 2016 is probably a 7 out of 10, because that game had some issues. Eternal is an 8, I think. An 8 out of 10 is pretty good, you know. And I think this game's a solid 7.5 out of 10, really. I could see an argument for a 7. I can't see an argument for an 8. And if you want to drop Doom 2016 down to a 6, then I can see this game being a 6.5 and Doom Eternal being a 7, if that's the way you want to rate it. I don't think this game like Assassin's Creed Shadow, Dragon's Age, Veilguard, those are like 3 and 4s out of 10s. You know, this isn't that massive of a failure, but I don't think they're gonna break even on this game. I think this game probably costed them maybe $100 million to make, maybe. That might be pushing it. If they spent more than that for this game, I'd be surprised. But I think they're probably gonna make their money back, and that'll probably take a year. You know, I think for Xbox they're happy they're selling the subscriptions, but for ID Software, id Software, they're not too happy about that. I think. Again, they're like this music. This is the music I wanted to hear the whole game, and it just most of the time, maybe because I wasn't thinking about it, but I didn't hear it. But yeah, this is the good music, you know. Yeah, overall, I enjoyed it. You know, it's not like I was having a bad time outside of like the flying sections where I really didn't like that. I think that's probably the biggest problem for me. There's 2 waves of combat that I just absolutely despised, and then they probably wasted so much money designing that, and I'm like, I'm just sitting here and I'm just like, why did they do this? It just didn't feel like Doom to me. But yeah, I think that's all she wrote for my review. Hopefully it was coherent enough. But yeah, thank you all very much. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the live streams. I hope you guys enjoyed the playthrough. Hopefully you guys will enjoy anything else I'm going to be making. So if you like the content, hit the like button, and if you want to see more, hit that subscription. You know, obviously share if you want to, so I can get bigger. That'd be great. And then if you have any of your own comments, put them in the comment section. I really appreciate it. And then obviously if you didn't like my stuff, you know, drop a comment, tell me why I suck, and then hit the dislike button, I suppose. So much I can do about it. But yeah, have a great day.